My 10 favorite vocabulary activities. Mr. Scott Thornbury, award-winning author, editor of the Cambridge Handbooks, and a global trainer with experience across Egypt, the UK, Spain, and New Zealand.
Good afternoon, dear educators. Another outstanding and exciting episode from our unique teacher trainer program, STEP. This is Dr. Hatem Hassanein, the Academic Director of Idulexia, the leading foundation of teacher training in the Middle East. And we are honored and pleased to have one of the renowned educational leaders worldwide, Mr. Scott Thornbury. How are you doing, Mr. Scott?
I'm very well, thank you. Thank you, Dr. Hatem. Thank you for that introduction.
Pleased and honored to have you with us, as you have been with us for a couple of outstanding and successful sessions that they have an impact on all the educators. I don't want to waste any of our valuable time as we're starving for your fruitful knowledge. Please take it away.
Thank you very much. Thank you and welcome everybody. It's lovely to see you. I hope some of you were at my previous session. If not, it doesn't matter. Today the focus is on vocabulary, and I'm going to give you a little task to do to start with. So using the chat program, I'm going to give you some numbers, some statistics, and you have to tell me what you think the statistic relates to. So what is the question that this is the answer? So for example, if I put up 250, now remember this relates to vocabulary use and vocabulary learning. So 250 is the answer to a question, yeah? And this is the question it's an answer to. How many words does a fluent reader read per minute? And the answer is 250. Did you know that? Did you know that? There's a lot of words we read when we're reading fluently in whatever language, yeah? So that is not it's almost the number of students in the class at the moment, yes. But that is the question. So I'm going to give you a number, and you just have to tell me what the question is that it answers. Are you ready? And you can write it into the chat. So I'm going to do this 3 times, 3 different numbers. So there's the number. Tell me what you think. Now remember, it's all about vocabulary, words. What is the question that 20,000 is the answer to? I mean, the amount of money. Yeah. Okay, Mehdi. Yes, brilliant. Yes, you got it straight away. It's the number of words that's calculated that a native speaker of English is familiar with. Yeah, it's the amount of vocabulary the average native speaker requires. It's prodigious. This is shown in studies, blah, blah, blah. So native speaking university graduates will have a vocabulary of about 20,000 words, or word families. So that's not individual words, but word families. A word family is a word and the words that are derived from it, or the most common words that derive from it. So take a word like care, as in, would you care for a piece of cake? Care, the word family of care is care, cares, caring, cared, okay, the grammatical ones. And then also words like careful, careless, caring, uncaring, etc. That's a word family. So yes, 20,000 words is what an educated native speaker knows. That's not all the words in the English language, of course. There's many, many, many more than that. Okay, very good. Well done, Mehdi. You got a prize. Okay, here's the second number. What question is 9,000 the answer to? Do you think? Now remember, it's all about vocabulary. Mamduh. Yes, you're getting. He says, how many words does a regular person know? You mean a non-native speaker? Okay, Mehdi again. The average number one needs to speak fluently. Yes, more or less, Mehdi. Yes, Maisa. It's not so much the number of words they know, it's the number of words they should know. Yeah, so I'll give you the answer here. This is from a quotation from the book. It's the vocabulary size you need to understand 98% of these different text types. So to read a novel in English, you need to be familiar with about 9,000 words. Yeah, that gives you coverage of 98% of the text. There'll be one or two words you won't know. It doesn't matter. They're probably not important. You can work them out from context. Newspapers, not so many. Children's movies, not so many. Conversation, 7,000 words is sufficient. Okay, so that's for comprehension. Comprehension of authentic texts in different text types, novels, newspapers, children's movies, conversation, etc. 9,000. So not the 20,000 that the native speaker knows, but 9,000. Okay, one more statistic. There's another little quotation there. We can see that for most texts, the vocabulary size from 7,000 to 9,000 word families is needed. 7,000. Remember word families too. Which, yeah, care, cared, caring. Okay. Final number, 500. What do you think 500? What question does 500 the answer to with relation to vocabulary? Good guess how many words needed to be able to run a basic conversation. They probably a bit more than that, but the words you most beginner level. How many words? Okay, how many words can a person memorize? Heba. That's getting close, actually. A lot of good ideas here. Ahmed, yes. How many words do you read in 2 minutes? Very, very clever. Yes. How many words can a person memorize a day? Wow, Ranim, if you can remember 500 a day, that's pretty good. Okay, this is a calculation done in Greece, in fact. Students learning English at school, this is the number of words they learn in a year. So James Milton measured the vocabulary knowledge of EFL learners in Greece who received around 100 hours of language instruction each year. 100 hours. Now, I don't know how many hours your students are getting, but it's probably not much more than 100. He found differences probably among students. This is a lexical growth rate of around 500 lemmas, that's words per year. 500 words a year is how many they learned. Now, think about that for a minute. How many words did we say that we need for fluent reading and understanding? 9,000. How many words do students on average learn a year? 500. How many years is it going to take them to get to 9,000? Your math is not very good, but Mehdi again. 18 years. 18 years to get a decent vocabulary. Something's not working here. Something's not working here. Yeah, if they're only learning 500 words a year and they need 9,000, and I'm saying 9,000, maybe they don't need quite so many, but if they want to do IELTS, if they want to do Cambridge First Certificate, if they want to get a job at an English-speaking company, 9,000's probably a reasonable estimate. So we have a huge problem here that learners need lots of words, but they're not learning enough in their classrooms. So what are we going to do about that? What are we going to do about that? We're going to have to think seriously about vocabulary teaching. And a number of quotations here of people who are addressing this problem saying, arguably, this is Keith Foltz saying, vocabulary is perhaps the most important component in L2 ability. More important than grammar, more important than pronunciation. But for more than 2,000 years, the study of a foreign language primarily entailed grammar teaching, grammatical analysis. As a result, vocabulary has been academically excluded from, or at best limited, in second language curriculum classroom teaching. Now, that's probably the case in Greece. Those figures, remember the 500? Maybe they were spending all their time teaching grammar, and therefore students were not making big headway with their vocabulary. Another similar quote, writer 1997, she says, until recently, there has been little emphasis placed on the acquisition of vocabulary. We could say maybe that's changed. That was like 25 years ago. Mike McCarthy said even longer, he said, no matter how well the student learns grammar, or no matter how successfully the sounds of the second language are mastered, that is the pronunciation, without words to express a wide range of meanings, communication in a second language just cannot happen in any meaningful way. Without words, there's no communication. And yet, he says, vocabulary often seems to be the least systematized and the least well catered for of all the aspects of learning a foreign language. Now, again, that was in 1990. Maybe things have got better since then, but my sense is that not a lot of vocabulary teaching is done in classrooms, and even less vocabulary exposure is done outside of classrooms in any kind of deliberate or intentional way. So that was my introduction. What I want to do now is share with you some activities, my favorite activities, which might help the situation. And these are they. And we'll see if we can get through them. And if we don't, well, I'll just have to come back next year. Okay, number one. I used to do this in physical classrooms. Before the internet, before anything, I used to collect pictures from magazines, and I put them into different folders. So I'd have pictures of people, pictures of rooms, furniture inside of houses, pictures of landscapes, etc. And I would take these pictures in and I would give each student a different picture, but they were the same topic, more or less, landscapes, for example. And then they would have to, each student, and I also bring in dictionaries, bilingual dictionaries. And the student would, maybe they could do this in pairs, depending on how many dictionaries you've got, how much time you've got. The student looks at the picture and finds words in the picture and uses the dictionary to find the English equivalent. That's all. It's a brainstorming operation. Now, it's much easier nowadays because you could just go online and I can say, give me some landscapes. Do an image search. And I've got lots of different landscapes and they all share certain features, but each one's different. I mean, these are great for all sorts of other activities too, by the way. One picture for each student or for each pair of students. They don't need paper dictionaries because they can use their online dictionary. They've got 10 minutes to find as many words. And then what? Then they teach each other. You redivide the class, they go into new groups and they teach each other the words that they've found. Now, some of those words will not be hugely important, but some of them will. And the effort of looking them up and teaching them to each other will be very useful in terms of memory. And also you can get one student up at the front of the class, then to summarize, to teach all the words that he or she has learned, the ones that she accessed using the dictionary and the ones that she was taught by her comrades. Or you could do a carousel activity, the sort of thing. So this, if you've got enough room and enough, if you've got 20 students, you put 10 students around the wall facing in and 10 students facing them, and they teach each other their words with their picture. And then you say change, and that students in the inner circle move around one, and then they do the same thing with another student. So repeating these words again and again and again. And you can do that. Google makes it so much easier now. Search engines here. So pictures all related to the theme of the park, the playground, lots of lovely vocabulary. Teach each other. Find out the word in 10 words to find the meanings of the words, or anything that's got lots of detail. Paintings, for example. This painting by Bruegel, fantastic. So many things happening. And it doesn't have to be nouns that they're teaching. They can teach verbs. Like to skate. Not very useful in Egypt. Here's one that's more useful in Egypt. So lots of lovely vocabulary there that they can teach each other. And then what do? they use the vocabulary to write a description of the picture. And so going back to these ones, they each got a landscape, they write a description of the landscape, they put the description with the picture on the wall, and the students go around and read the descriptions. And so they're getting recycling again of the vocabulary, and the vocabulary this time is in context. It's in a little description. And so one lesson with just those pictures can generate maybe 100, 200 words, because each student's accessing different. Some of the words will be the same, obviously, but there's a huge spurt of vocabulary going on there. Pharaohs, yes. So this is the sequence then. Brainstorm words in the picture using a dictionary if necessary. Peer teaching, that is, teach their colleagues, classmates. Review and testing, you can test each other, and then recycling, writing a description. Fantastic activity. I did it all the time. Activity number 2. So this is also brainstorming. Now, remember, those of you who were here last or 2 weeks ago when I was talking about engagement, and I played a game with you where you had to guess an object. Remember? Guessing game. Guess the object. Guess the object that I have here on my desk. In fact, it was this little cup, or I could have done it with I showed you this last time, yeah? My little statue of Kulsum. Now, before we do that activity, why not brainstorm some vocabulary that will be useful for the guessing game? So for guessing an object, I can put up this chart, yeah? So we have different categories. Before we do the game, before we even look at the secret object, we're going to brainstorm the vocabulary. So different colors, different shapes, different materials, different sizes, different functions, purposes, yeah, for the object. So for example, can you give me some words for the column number 3 for material that will be useful for an activity where you have to guess an object? Material. What words could we put in that column? Wood, plastic, cloth, ceramic, metal, and so on. Fantastic. Now, so we can do that with the students. We can do it with the students of the whole class working together, or we can do it with the students in groups using their dictionaries if they want. Yeah, and then we get the feedback from all the groups and we put it up into one document and we project it. So if we're teaching online, it goes into a big Google document like this, and we get all the words that the students have brainstormed. But not just words, but expressions, like it's used for writing, or you write with it. It's made of. Thank you, Saha. And then we can play the game, because the students now have the vocabulary. And by playing the game, they will use the vocabulary, and they will use a lot of it again and again. Is it made of metal? Is it made of plastic? And then somebody else doesn't hear. Is it made of plastic? We ask that one. And then we don't, everybody has the turn with their object. And again, is it bright? Is it dull? Is it cylindrical? Remember, yes, no questions. We can do this with any guessing game. Yeah. So for example, fabulous game. I love this. Played it a lot in class. What's my job? Yeah. So I'm going to think of a job, and you have to ask me questions to guess the job. Yes, no questions. Yeah. But before we play the game, we'll brainstorm some vocabulary. So categories like place. Do you work indoors or outdoors? Do you work in an office? Do you work in a restaurant? Clothing. Do you wear a uniform? Do you have to wear a hat? Yeah. Tools. Do you work with machinery? Do you work with a computer? Training. Do you need a degree? Rewards. Is it an easy job? Is it a hard job? Is it physically or mentally tiring? Is it satisfying? Blah, blah, blah. All the vocabulary is there so the students can play the game, and you leave the vocabulary on the board while they're playing the game. Yeah. It's not a test. It's a way of recycling the vocabulary and using it again and again and again and again. But remember, they're not allowed to say uniform, restaurant, fun, No, they have to make a question because it's a language class. They're also got to be practicing their grammar and putting the vocabulary into context. So you can do this with any, like, for example, for children, if you're teaching for children, this is great. I'm an animal. Yeah, I'm an animal. I'm a farm animal. You have to guess which animal I am. You have to ask me questions. Yeah. So what kind of categories do you think you will need for farm animals? Well, the number of legs, fly or swim, yeah, locomotion, etc., stuff like that. Or you can do it with faces. This is a slightly different activity. I mean, it's a guessing activity, but this time students have various faces like this on a piece of paper. They're in pairs. They can't, and each student chooses one of these and then they describe it, and the other one has to listen and guess. Yeah, classic communicative activity, information gap activity. Describe and guess. Yeah. So what categories would you use for faces if you were brainstorming the vocabulary first? What categories? Yeah, to put on into our table. Hair, yes. Okay. Well, beard is specific, but categories. Age, yes. Color, etc. Skin color, etc. Yes. So something like this: age, hair, eyes, complexion, and distinguishing features like glasses, nose ring, earring, etc. Scarves, accessories. Exactly. Thank you. Fantastic. So put the vocabulary up, and then they can play the game, and they can do so they're prepared and they're recycling, and it's a way of. When students play these games, if they don't have this preparation, they tend to just reuse the words they've always used. But when you brainstorm the words before the activity, then there's a chance that they will extend their vocabulary. Okay, this is another one of my favorite activities. I invented this myself. Traditionally in the classroom, we're going to give students a text, a text in their course book, for example. We traditionally, at least, we're trained to pre-teach the important or useful or difficult vocabulary. I've always had a little bit of a problem with pre-teaching, because how do we know that they don't already know it? And how can we be sure that it's a word that is important for understanding the text? It's going to be different for every student, isn't it? So this is what I came up with. So imagine I'm going to do a text with you, authentic text. First of all, we'll do something like this to prepare them for the text. So again, using a picture to brainstorm some vocabulary. So this is where they can show what words they do know. So what can you see in this vocabulary, in this picture? They brainstorm that. They can do that in pairs or groups. They can do it in breakout rooms. This is not a big activity. This is just a little to get them into the mood of the text, to get them a general sense of what the text is about, because this is an illustration for the text. Now I'm going to show you the text. It's a poem. It's a real poem. I've chosen something kind of difficult because you're all such good speakers of English. With a class, you could give the text will be something in their course book, or it's an easy text, but there will be words in it that different students will know and different students won't know. So what are we going to do? This is what we're going to do. This is the text, and this is the task. Choose 5 words, and only 5, from the text that you would like to know the meaning of. So you can do that now. Think about it. You don't have to write them in the chat, but just think, if I was a student, probably what words would they choose? Even a quite advanced student. Queer, woods, queer again. Yes, Amani, I think harness, definitely. I think harness. I'm not even sure exactly. Okay, good. So you got the idea. So the students do this. Are you listening? You're too busy reading. I'll read it to you in a minute. I'll read you the poem. But each student's working individually. 5 words that they don't know. Then you put them into, I'm not going to tell them the words, and they don't have their dictionaries. You put them into pairs, and they show their list to their partner. Now, their partner will have some words that they don't have and have other words. They have to negotiate a new list of only 5 words. So one student says, oh, I know that word. I'll tell you what it means. Says, okay, that's good. I can cross that one off. Or the student might say, I don't think that's very important. Or the student might say, I think maybe a student's chosen snowy. The other student says, no, I think that comes from snow, like rain, rainy, snow, snowy, sun, sunny. So they renegotiate their list in pairs, and then you put them into groups of 4, and they do the same thing. And they have to come to a new list, a new decision. And so they have to negotiate. No, I think I know, that word's not very important. I think I know that word. I think it means blah, 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 blah. Work it out from context, maybe, etc. And depending on how many students you have in the class, then eventually you say to the whole class, okay, the 5 words that the class needs to know. Yeah, and then you write them on the board, and then you teach them. You tell them what they mean. So they have chosen the words that they think are important. And in doing so, they have to make decisions each time they speak to another, to their pair, to the bigger group. They have to make decisions about, is this important? Can I work it out from context? Does somebody else know it? So no pre-teaching is necessary. But there's the students, and then if it's a poem like this, the thing is hiding my, I just have to, then it's great if they can hear the words in context, yeah, so that hear their pronunciation. So I'll read it to them, yeah. So the poem is called Stopping by Woods on a Snowy Evening by an American writer called Robert Frost. Whose woods these are, I think I know. His house is in the village, though. He will not see me stopping here to watch his woods fill up with snow. My little horse must think it queer to stop without a farmhouse near, between the woods and frozen lake, the darkest evening of the year. He gives his harness bells a shake to ask if there is some mistake. The only other sounds the sweep of easy wind and downy flake. The woods are lovely, dark and deep, but I have promises to keep and miles to go before I sleep. And miles to go before I sleep. Isn't that lovely? I love that poem. So you could do that with any text, not necessarily a poem. I mean, you wouldn't read it if it was not a poem, but it's good that they hear the text, though. Okay. This is a classic activity. I didn't invent this. This has been around since the beginning of time in language classes. So traditionally, in a physical classroom, the teacher brings in a tray, remember a tray like a breakfast tray, and there are set things on the tray, lots of different objects. And the teacher puts the tray on the desk, the students look at the objects, and they have 1 minute. 1 minute, and then the teacher covers the objects with a piece of cloth, and they have to try and remember what was on the tray. Yeah. So but you can do it very easily online because we've got pictures. And we do a picture. So you've got 1 minute. Look at the picture. You've got 1 minute. Don't take a screenshot. Don't say anything. Just look. Remember. No writing. Okay. Now we can do this different ways. If we're online, they can simply put as many words as they can remember into the chat, or you could go into the breakout rooms and they could compare. If you're in a real classroom, they could shout them out and put them on the board. So which student has remembered the most words? So Nesma, you can only remember coat, or you've got others as well. So we can do that with any picture. with any set of words that we've taught before, or words like this, you can put them into. So now you can check. Did you have all 12? Who had 12? We can do that with any picture. So going back to my picture, remember the picture of the farm animals or the jobs. Same thing. Put them up. Got a minute. How many can you remember? It's a classic. Then we can use those words for my favorite activity, number 5. I did this a lot in real physical classrooms, but you can do it online. So let's say we're using this group of words. There's 12 words here. If we select either jumper or sweater. 12 words. That's a good number, 12, because I can make little cards for each word. Yeah. So 12 cards with the word on it. One set of cards for each group of students. It's a little bit of work, but you get the cards back at the end and you can use them again. Yeah. So if I've got 16 students in the class, I'll need 4 sets, let's say, 4 sets of 12 words. Okay. Actually, we're going to start with 15 words. I'm going to a set of cards with 15 words. 3 words are not in the picture. So these are the words. Imagine these are cards. So that you give them to the group. You say to the students, find the words that were not in the picture. What of those? There were 12 words. Said. Oh my, you're the winner. No tights, no hat, and no socks. But you see, this is good too. They're getting extra words for their money. Okay, so now we've taken out those 3 words. Yeah, those 3 words that weren't in the original. We now have 12 words on cards. Yeah, so in the physical classroom, I like cards because they can move them around. In the online classroom, you have to give them to them like this. It's not as manipulative, but whatever. Okay. I'm going to then give the students some tasks to do with these cards. Okay. And the first tasks are very easy. So the first one, the first task is to take those 12 words. Can you remember the original order? Can you remember what word was first in the list, and the second and the third? It's not so easy. So the students doing this in groups, remember? Working with their classmates, and some will have better memories. And they try to put the words in order. Yeah. But this means they're recycling the words and they're discussing the words from memory. Yeah. And if you need to know, then there they are. You can show them this and say, who had the right order, which group, or the nearest. Okay. So that's the first task. Well, the first task was actually get rid of the 3 words that weren't in the picture. Second task was put the words in the original order. The third task is group the words according to the number of syllables. Group the words according to the number of syllables. Yeah? So you're making 2 groups, basically. Yeah? So we've got trousers, sweater, raincoat, jacket, etc. In one group, got skirt, suit, shirt, top, dress, jeans. Okay, it's not a very difficult task, but they're revisiting the words and they're thinking about their pronunciation. The third task is find any words that rhyme, any words that have the same sound, that rhyme. Can you see any words in the list that rhyme? Yes, ranim, fantastic, very quick, skirt and shirt. So again, they're thinking about the pronunciation. The next task is group the words into at least 3 categories. 3 categories. Group them. Now they can decide the category, Now, this is getting a little bit more cognitively demanding. Remember last session we talked about engagement? Well, this is more cognitive engagement. They have to think about, well, okay, we could create we could have 2 categories, clothes for men, clothes for women, but he wants 3 categories. Right? Casual for okay, you got the idea exactly. So they decide the categories. So they could be winter, summer, or both. Both is a category, yeah? Or male or female, or both. Yes. Men, women, and kids. Dunya. Yes. Why not? So they put the words, they're making decisions about the words. Or they could be top half of the body, bottom half of the body, or both. Exactly. Okay, and one more task. Imagine you lost your suitcase. Yeah, when you came back from, or when you went on holiday by plane, you lost your suitcase. What? And you're going to London. What? Make a shopping list using these words of the most important and the least important things you would buy with the money that you get from Egypt Air when you lose your bag. So they have to make another decision, a personal decision. What's most important to me? Okay, so you can do these kinds of categorizing activities with any lexical set of vocabulary. So, for example, if you're teaching, or let's just look at the list again. This is the list of tasks. Look at eliminate 3 words that were in the picture, put the words in the original order, group the words to 1 or 2 syllables, find words that rhyme, group the words into at least 3 categories. Imagine you lost your bag after a flight, make a shopping list. So the tasks, particularly 5 and 6, are going to be different, perhaps for different sets of words. But for example, imagine you are teaching furniture. You could do the same thing. Give the words on cards. Well, first of all, we play the memory game. Show them the picture. You've got 1 minute. Remember, blah, 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 blah. Then we do the words on cards, categories, decisions, etc. They're doing things with the words, all and working with each other. Fantastic. Okay, moving on. Halfway. Homemade concordance. What's a concordance? Concordance is something like this. Concordance is an index of all the words in a database of texts in this case. The database of text is called a corpus, plural corpora, and corpus tools usually include a concordancing program. A concordancing program, you say to the program, give me all the sentences with used to, and brrr, there they are, yeah, from this huge collection of text. That's a concordance, like and conc, exactly nada. Concordances, I haven't had a lot of success in the classroom with concordances with students because too much information and too fragmented and ungraded. So, but this activity comes from an idea from a writer called Jane Willis, and she in fact wrote a course book with her husband, and the transcripts of the listening activities were in the back of the book, of this course book. Yeah, this is, you can see at the top panel a selection of transcripts, the transcription of the recorded dialogues in the book. I ran these through a little concordance program, and I found that there were a lot of sentences with home in them. And I thought, Jane Willis' idea is, well, the students can do this. They can take a common word like home, and they can make their own little concordance. Find all the examples with home in the transcripts of the listening activities, for example, or in the reading text in the course book, and in your notebook, start to make concordance, and try to put the words, the keyword, what's called the node, in this case home, in the same kind of position. Organize that concordance around the key word. And what they get then is quite a lot of information about this interesting word home. That, for example, what do you notice? Well, one of the things they notice is we don't use preposition with home. Not I went to home or I went to my home. No, I went home. I got home. I came home. And also there's some wonderfully useful expressions with home, including on the way home, on the way home. And they can add to this as they work way through lesson 1, lesson 2, lesson 3, lesson 4 of the course book. They'll find more words of these common words, and they can add these sentences to their concordance. It's a lovely idea, and it trains the students to become linguistic detectives, to notice things in the input that they receive when they read, when they watch movies with English subtitles, etc. They'll see expressions with some of these common words in English. Or you can introduce them to this wonderful website, the Sketch Engine website, and you can do the same thing there. And the wonderful thing about this is the examples in the concordances have been graded, to make them intelligible to learners. So if we go to home, and we can say to the program, give me some, what are the words, the verbs for which home is the object, and put them in order of frequency. Return home is very common, the most common. Go home, come home, run home, stay home, hit home, build home, send home, arrive home, bring home. Okay, that's kind of interesting. But the beauty of this is then you can click on any of these blue words and you'll get a little concordance. So click on go home, and we've got some wonderful sentences with different tenses that we could use in the classroom, or the students could use. Other staff had long since gone home. I went home and took more calcium. It's very much nicer than going home. These are real sentences, but they've been selected. And we can try another verb like come home, and there we go. Much more of that. That is a lovely little word website, and the address is here, and it's called Sketch Engine. There you are, Amin. I anticipated your question. Okay, moving on. Just give you a chance to take a screenshot of that, and on we go. Word cards. Word cards. Now we're moving into away from the classroom and into homework activities, out of class activities. Remember our magic figure, 500 words a year. We've got to increase that. To at least 2,000 a year. We can do so much in the classroom, but time is at a premium. We could stop wasting so much time teaching grammar, but that's another story. But a lot of the work the students are going to do to increase the vocabulary is going to be outside the classroom. And the best way of doing it is through word cards. Now, word cards are these. I mean, basically, they're just pieces of paper or pieces of card with the word on one side, or the expression, and the translation into the student's first language on the other. English on one side, Arabic on the other. And this is a friend of mine. I think these are in French. Inas, yes, you're one step ahead of me. So this is the old-fashioned pre-digital way of working. You make your cards, you carry your cards with you wherever you go. When you're on the bus, you take them out and you test yourself. You do it again, and you do it again, and you do it again, and you change the order. And you test yourself going from English into Arabic, if you're a student of English, And then the other way around, which is more difficult, Arabic into English. What's the word? A Japanese company called Muji, a chain store, actually produces word cards on a little key ring. Isn't that cute? But of course, most of you are familiar with digital word cards. This is one program called Anki. So you can carry it on your phone. This is my word cards for learning Catalan, which is the local language in Barcelona, Catalonia. Now, so expressions in this case. I test myself and it can change the order and it can tell me how well I'm doing, etc. And you'll be familiar with Quizlet. And here is a friend who's learning Swedish, and he let me take a screenshot. On the left is all the expressions. He's getting the expressions from his reading and watching movies in Swedish, and then he tests himself. So I'm busy. In Swedish, it's jag är upptagen. Now, why are word cards so good? Well, research shows that there is value in learning vocabulary using word cards. The research also shows there are ways of maximizing learning, and learners need to know about how to make use of them. Not enough to say, oh, go to Quizlet and make, no, you've got to be trained. And that is where the teacher is very important, because the teacher can show them in the classroom how to make the most, how to maximize the learning opportunities of word cards, which includes learners should know about the importance of retrieval in learning, retrieving from memory. We'll come back to that point in a minute, and how word cards encourage this by not allowing the word form and meaning to be seen simultaneously. You see the word form on one side of the card and the word meaning, its translation into their mother tongue, on the other, but not together. So you have to retrieve the English word, or vice versa. You have to retrieve the meaning of the English word. Learners should know the value of repeating and spacing learning. So you create larger intervals between each time you visit your cards, including long-term review. They should know what words to choose to put on their cards, because they're making the cards themselves. The teacher's not making their lists for them. So they have to pay particular attention to useful words. What are the useful words? Well, all things being equal, the most useful words are the most common words, high frequency words. They don't need to know words like harness. Remember harness in the poem? They don't need to know that. They don't need to put that on a word card. Waste of time. Never going to use it. They need to keep changing the order of the cards. So if it's a digital program like Quizlet, it should do it for them, because otherwise you remember which one's coming next. And they should use small packs of cards at the early stages of learning and bigger packs when learning is easier. And they should make deliberate efforts to transfer the learning. It's not enough just that they should use these words in meaning-focused language use. Put the words into a sentence. Put the words into a story. We'll come to that point in a minute. But word cards is probably the single most important thing that students can do outside of the classroom, apart from extensive reading or extensive viewing of streamed movies with subtitles, etc. But using the word cards as they read, making new word cards. Okay. We're getting there. Word box. Every classroom, every physical classroom should have a word box. A word box is a box, then you put words in it. So every time you learn a new word, and a new word comes up in the classroom, like snowy, write it on a card, pop it in the box. Or you can make a special box. If it's a high-level class, you can have a phrasal verb box. But once the words are in the box, that becomes the collective lexicon of the class. It's the class's mental word store. We can use those words all the time. Beginning of the lesson, Students reach in, pull out a handful of words, and they test each other in pairs, for example. If you're working online, then you need a document where all the words go in, like a Google document or a Dropbox folder that they all can have access to. And new words go in during the lesson, at the end of the lesson, pull them out, beginning of the next lesson. And one of the things you can do with the words in the word box is you can recycle them to make a text. Yeah, so take out a handful of words and see how many words you can make a text. Yeah, I'll give you a time limit. So for example, today, these are some of the words that came up in our session. Now, this is a good activity too, and I can take them off and say, how many did you remember? How many did you just see? I mean, which? So that's a very good activity because now we're retrieving them from Mariam, snow, village, very good. Yes, there you go. Okay, so make a text by putting as many of those words into a single text. You're not going to do that now because we don't have time, but you've got the idea. So the words can come from the box. They can come from the lesson, the words that I put up on the board during the lesson. They can come from the text that we used in the lesson. Or they can be completely random words for advanced levels. And there are websites where you can just say, I want 10 different words, please. Random words. They're not part of a lexical set. They're just, you can adjust the search. You can say 2-syllable words, 3-syllable words, difficult words, common words, etc. There's two sites. I think they're still operating. So I did this with some students online. I got some random words, and these were the random words: division, European, dedicate, prisoners. And the students went to the breakout rooms and they had to together write a text using as many of these words as possible. This was a group of adult students in Ukraine, and this is the text they came up with. One group. Once upon a time, everything went on better than expected for Sue. She met an athletic. That's in the list. Athletic guy in a bar, critical beer. That's the name of the bar. They were unlikely to meet in any other place in the world, but he was in blah, 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 blah. Lovely, creative story. Oh, finally. Now, this is another retrieval and review activity. I didn't invent it. It's been around for years. It's called Hot Seat. And we have a hot seat in the classroom. So in a physical classroom, there's a seat in front of the class with the back to the board. The board is behind. Student comes out. You say, okay, Ahmed, come here. You sit in the seat. And then you write a word on the board that has come up in the lesson, like village, village. That's a useful word, village. Ahmed can't see the word. The rest of the class have to give him clues. They can't say the word, and they can't spell the word, and they can't say the word begins with V. No, they have to give the meaning of the word or a synonym or the opposite, and until Ahmed guesses it. Yeah, everybody claps. Well done, Ahmed. Next one. Up, Heba. You get up, and the word on the back of the board is skirt. And all these words that we did in this lesson. This is not so easy to do online. And I don't know how you would do it. But if anybody has a solution, it occurs to me you could use it during the chat. So let's say you have your chat, and let's say you only have 10 students in the class. Then you could send the word to 9 of those students. Yeah, but you'd have to create a list take off Ahmed, yeah, from the list. So 9 students see the word, but Ahmed doesn't. And then they do it in class until he gets the word. But that's quite a lot of kerfuffle. So I don't know. Yeah, Meister, exactly. Send the word in the chat box for all students except one. How do you do that? You can do that, but then you seems like anyway, I'll let you think about that. And that is my 10 favorite activities. And I'm going to show you the list in a minute. But how many, this is retrieval now, retrieval. How many can you remember? And in the right order? Use the chat. What was number 1? Okay. Okay. Yes. What was number 1? It wasn't the guessing game. It was the picture brainstorm. That was a long time ago, at least 60 minutes. So I don't expect you to remember. What was number 2? People are already being creative. We're getting chaos out here. We've got, okay, yes, brainstorm words for a guessing game. Remember that one? What was number 3? Yes, 5 words in the text, 5 words to look up. And so on. How many can you remember of these words? Like, I'm going to show you. Words on the cards, ranking at categories, homemade concordance, word cards, word box, recycle words into a text. And what was the last one? Ahmed, hot seat. Yeah, you remember because I used Ahmed as the example. Okay, very quickly then, because we're I just want to summarize the principles behind these activities. And I'm going to identify 6 principles about vocabulary learning that these activities are consistent with. Okay, so the first activity is called the principle of association. These are my names for these principles, the principles. So this is the quote. This is the theoretical bit. Yeah. Anybody who doesn't like theory can leave now, go and have a cup of tea and come back for the question and answer. But this is the theory. The human lexicon, that is the vocabulary that we know in our brain, is believed to be a network of associations. So when students are asked to manipulate words, relate them to other words and to their experiences, and then to give a justification, this reinforces the network. So think of the activity with the cards, the words on cards, yeah? Put them into 3 categories, yeah? The clothes, remember the clothing, trousers, put them into categories. They're thinking, they're making associations, they're making new associations for each task. When I say you lose your suitcase on the flight to Rome, what clothes would you buy first? Again, new associations, personal associations. That's the principle of association. This is incredibly important in human memory, the principle of recall, retrieval. The act of successfully recalling an item, each time you do that successfully, like with your word cards in the bus, increases the chance that the item will be remembered. You don't remember things just by repeating. No, you've got to pull them out of your gray matter. It appears that the retrieval route to that item is in some way strengthened by being successfully used. Each time you do that, the little things, synapses, whatever they're called in your brain, get stronger and stronger and stronger, and it's easier and easier and easier until you get old, like me, and then Number 3, the principle of depth, the depth of processing. This is similar, but Norbert Schmidt says in a very good book, the more one manipulates, thinks about, and uses mental information, the more likely it is that one will retain that information. The manipulation, the more times you use it. So again, with the word cards. In the case of vocabulary, the more one engages with the word, this is what's called deep processing, the more likely the word will be remembered for later use. And related to that is the principle of engagement. Engagement, that's what we were talking about 2 weeks ago. Engagement, so important. The learning of vocabulary in instructed L2 context, that's in classrooms, is enhanced by virtually anything that leads to more exposure, more attention, more manipulation, or more time spent on lexical items. In other words, by anything that brings greater engagement. Now think of the words in the poem. First of all, the students have to choose the words they want to learn. Then they have to negotiate with their partners about these words and eliminate some and learn, get more. And then they have to, then they see the words in the text, they have to understand the words, they hear the text. So each time there's more exposure, more attention, more engagement. And principle number 5, I've called the principle of generativeness. When words are met in reading and listening or used in speaking and writing, the generativeness of the context will influence learning. That is, if the words occur in new sentence contexts in the reading text, learning will be helped. Not the same sentence again and again and again, but a different sentence in a different text. Similarly, having to use the word to say new things will add to learning. Yeah, so it's not enough to learn the words like snow or snowy. Now I want to say to you, have you ever seen snow? Have you ever been in a snowy landscape? Tell us about it. Yeah? That's reusing the word in a new context. And finally, the principle of production. A learner's active, productive vocabulary is always smaller, than their receptive vocabulary. Yeah, we can read and understand many more words than we could produce in speaking or writing. So learners might be able to recognize a given lexical item when it's presented to them. Yeah, oh, I know that word. Or they may be able to infer its meaning from the context, but this is not at all the same thing as recalling words for use. If we want learners to be able to use the words that we teach them, they need to recall them for use. It's not enough just to keep seeing them or to keep hearing them. Those are my 6 principles that I draw out. Then a little bit of self-advertising. I wrote a book once called How to Teach Vocabulary, where I look at these different activities and these different principles. And finally, thank you. We are out of time. We have time, though, for question and answers. And so I think Dr. Hutton, can I just get rid of my, well, I'll leave it there. Not quite sure how to get rid of it.
Hello, Scott, and thanks a million for this amazing, outstanding session. And we can see the impact and the interaction from all our dear educators. You have an amount of claps that can open a clap store for this outstanding session. So, as you said, we will choose 3 questions. We wish we have the time to answer all our dear educators, but we will choose 3 questions so we can get the reply for them briefly. The first one, and I think it's a concern, especially for teachers who always try to apply for international schools and they want to have this native speaker flavor to their vocab and use of words. So from our and friend, Miss Amani Hatem, if I listen to native speakers, but I cannot pronounce as a native speaker, what should I do?
Yeah, no, I mean, this is definitely a challenge for students of second languages everywhere and anywhere. First of all, probably you need to disabuse yourself of the idea that you could ever sound like a native speaker. I know, because I've lived in Spain. I live in Spain. I'm in Spain now for 40 years. And I know that I will never sound like a native speaker of Spanish because I started learning it too late, the language. I was an adult. And unless you start learning when you're age 5, then don't even pretend that you will sound like a native speaker. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter, especially with English, because there's so many different varieties of English, and so many different kinds of native speakers. Like me, for example, I'm a native speaker, but I come from New Zealand. So my accent is different from Dr. Peter Watkins.
Australians or
exactly.
Scottish.
So, so the question, the bottom line is, is my pronunciation intelligible? Yeah. Well, people have trouble understanding me. So that's number one. One part of the question. For the situation that you describe of working with speakers of English and wanting to fit in, then I think more important than pronunciation is something I didn't talk about today, but it's what's called in the literature idiomaticity. Idiomaticity means, it comes from the word idiom, but it's not about knowing idioms so much. It's about using words in ways that they are most frequently used. Let me give you especially word combinations. If I give you an example, I was at a conference once in Liverpool, and an English language teaching conference. And a lot of the helpers in the conference were students of English who had come from other countries, principally from China. And one of these helpers came up to me and said, "Mr. Scott, could you sign a copy of your book?" Yeah, he'd bought or acquired a copy of one of my books and said, "Could I sign it?" And I said, "Yes, absolutely. I'd be delighted." And he said, "Hang on a minute." He had his bag on the floor. He said, "Hang on a minute, I'll fish it out."
Okay.
I'll fish it out. And I thought, wow, that is so cool. It's an idiom, yeah?
Yes.
But it's a phrasal verb also.
Yes.
And it's not a common one, but it gives a flavor of native likeness, like a native, that is pretty amazing. If I had to put a level on that guy, I would say C1 probably, just for that one example. I'll fish it out. It's so appropriate. Not I'll get it. That would have been fine. I'll look for it. I'll bring it to you. But I'll fish it out. And that's why students love phrasal verbs, or why teachers love phrasal verbs, not because they're useful, but because they have a flavor of the language. They are idiomatic. I'm not saying
they give strength to the meaning.
Well, yes, they give subtlety to the meaning, actually. I'm not saying you should teach them, certainly at low levels, because they have problems. But that was an example of idiomaticity. So much more important. Now, he said that with a Chinese accent. Yeah, Chinese accent wasn't important. What was important was his use of that particular expression. So one of the things when we're teaching vocabulary we need to be aware of is teaching not just individual words, but the way they combine in idiomatic ways. So take a word like home, the expression on the way home, or even on the way, is incredibly useful, very common, and quite idiomatic. Then you think of other expressions with way, by the way, or in the way. Sorry, I can't get past. You're in the way, yeah, as opposed to on the bus, sending a message, I'm on the way, etc. This is the idiomatic side of language learning, which is a whole different topic, which next year I'll come and talk to you about. Any more questions?
Yes, sir. We have another important question from our friend Muyassar Al-Gindi. Mr. Muyassar asking, what is the most effective method for remembering vocab for eternity? And I think this is another important issue of information and knowledge retention.
Yeah, exactly. Well, it's coming back to the principle of recalling, and you know the expression, if you don't use it, you'll lose it. So you have to keep using the vocabulary. It goes. I mean, I know we all lose words on a daily basis, and not just old people like me, but we forget words because we don't use them. And particularly if we're away from the context in which the language is used. So, for example, I no longer live in an English-speaking context, so there's words that I don't actually use very often. Sometimes there's words I never use in English, but I use them in Spanish because I never had to use them in English. So I'm thinking of a word like, you know that above the window in your terrace, if you have a terrace or a balcony, you have a cloth thing that you can wind up to keep the sun wind down. Did you know the name for that? Well, I mean, in English, it's an awning, but I never had any. I never owned an awning in an English-speaking country. I learned the word in Spanish. Do you know what the word in Spanish is? It's toldo. So even when I'm speaking with my English friends and they're coming around, English-speaking friends, I'll say, hang on, it's hot out there. I'll put down the toldo because I don't know the word for awning. I do. But I mean, it's not the first one that comes to mind. So I've kind of lost it. That's okay. It's not a word that matters. But if your learners are not constantly, and this is the beauty of extensive reading, if they're reading novels or they're reading stories or they're reading plays or anything, but long-ish, longer than a single page, then chances are they'll be meeting lots of words repeatedly. And we know the research says you need to meet a word, you need to encounter a word at least 7 times before it's fixed in your long-term memory. 7 times. And a lot of words don't appear in a course book 7 times. That's why you need to read outside of the classroom. Extensive reading, fantastic, for pleasure. Easy text, shouldn't be too difficult. Graded readers, fantastic. But that's another way of maintaining your vocabulary, not increasing it necessarily, but certainly maintaining it. Okay, another question.
The last question that we'll have, and I think it's related to our previous question in a way, by Mr. Omar, and he's asking how many words, what is the maximum number of words students can learn in one session so they don't be overwhelmed and can actually take benefit from this session without being confused and frustrated?
That's a very good question. And I remember when I started teaching, I was told, this was a very long time ago, I was told, don't teach more than
a couple of years ago. Still.
Yeah, 2 years ago. Thank you. Yes. I was told, don't teach more than 6 words per lesson because the students will get confused and they won't remember them. I think 6 is just too few. It's true that there's a danger on the other end of overkill. Yeah, teaching too many words and they all, in one ear. It's what can be done with. The important thing is not the number of words, but how many times that word is recycled and used in the lesson. If it's only once, then that's no good. It has to be used 7 times. It has to be manipulated. All the kinds of activities we were looking at. Now, I think that if you do these activities, let's say, choosing, let's say the brainstorm, the very first one, brainstorming from a picture, that's going to generate a lot of words. Now, a lot of those words will be forgotten. They'll disappear from use. But chances are that some of those words, particularly the words that the individual students used, recycled, will stick, particularly if you review them in the following lesson very quickly. If they're in the word box, for example, pull them out, do something with them, put them into a sentence, test each other. So I don't think there's a finite limit at all, but it's probably more than 6.
Okay. So yes, I guess so. Otherwise, our teachers will not be able to finish the vocab in their curriculum along the scholastic year.
Exactly.
Yes. Well, can't thank you enough, Mr. Scott. Always a pleasure, always an honor. And as I told you, even internally, the impact of your sessions is outstanding. We love always to have you. Can't thank you enough. Can't thank our dear guests, the dear educators.
Join STEP today and take your teaching to new heights.